All right, so now if I'm ready to make this a movie so I can email it to grandma, I'm ready to begin. So I've got my turntable perfectly in line, rotating at a nice smooth pace. I open my render settings by clicking on this render settings icon right here. And this is my render settings. So the first thing I can see, it's going into my projects folder, and it's going into the images folder. If I wanted to create a folder, I could call this, let's say, turntable. And then if I put a slash, it's going to create a folder. And then I'll just name this, I'll name it turntable. And then hit enter. Okay, so it's going to go into my images folder, and then it's going to create a folder called turntable, and then in that folder is a file called turntable. Now, image format, I'm going to set that to be a JPEG, and you can notice I could set it to be, PNG or any of these other ones, but just to make it simple, I'm just going to keep it a JPEG right now. Then I want it to be multiple frames, so I'm going to choose this one, name_number.ext. And you can see here, now it's going to go from turntable_1 to turntable_10. I want some frame padding here. Okay, so those are the same number of digits. So turntable 001 to turntable 010. Okay, and obviously not just 10 frames, but I want the starting frame to be 1, and I want the ending frame to be 100. There we go. So now it's going from frame 1 to 100. And I want it to be the perspective view as opposed to like the side view or something like that. And then as far as the size, my window size, if I click on this up here, that'll kind of show me the frame of the shot. And if I go to camera settings, vertical, now I can kind of see how my character is framed. And if I wanted to change the size, I could change it here. I think I'll leave it at 640 by 480, and I'll just kind of bring them closer like that. Hit play. I want to make sure that it kind of stays in the whole shot. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. Now I think I'm ready to actually go. So I'm just going to do a test render here. Okay. And let's say if I'm happy with that, maybe I'll do another test render just kind of from some different angles. Okay, cool. And I could play with the lighting and I could get fancy with it, but just for the sake of just kind of showing this quick render here, I'm going to let it go. So if I go into my, let me see here. So if I go into Intro to Maya, and if I go into my images folder, okay, notice there's nothing in my images folder of my projects folder right now until I'm going to hit render on this. So here's what I need to do. I'm going to go up here, switch it to rendering, and then I'm going to switch this, and I'm going to say render sequence. Okay, and when I click on this, it's going to render literally 100 frames. And I'm going to try to bring this up, and we'll kind of talk about that as I render. So here we go. I'll go to render sequence. And before I do that, I think I'm just going to save this real quick. I like to save it just in case something happens, that I'm not expecting, and I need to kind of shut it down. So I'm going to call this turntable render. There we go. Good. Now I'm going to go ahead and render this out. So render sequence. And when I do that, it's going to render each frame. And depending on how fast your computer is, it might take it longer to render or slower to render. And if I look at this, you can see that it automatically created this folder called the turntable. And if I open this up, I can see that here's the individual frames that it's producing, and we can see that it's producing them live. And so what it's doing is it's basically producing a flip book that will use AfterEffects to put it together and make the final video. Usually what I do, let's say if I have a really long sequence, is I will let the computer run, maybe get a cup of coffee, and then come back in a little bit to see if it's finished. But before I do that, I like to, what I call babysit the render, meaning that I want to make sure that the render is going to be okay. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll physically look at the render like I am here, and I can see that, hey, the character's in shot, it's the right camera, the textures are turned on, I can see that he is moving, so everything is looking good. But I'll also go like this, and I'll take a look at the time, and I'll see how many frames a minute. Okay, well, this is actually rendering super fast. I can see that in 1 minute, it's doing 36 frames. And so at that rate, I mean, this will be done in 3 minutes, okay, or less. But usually, like complex scenes might take, let's say if it took 1 minute per frame, well, then we would know that in 100 minutes that the render would be finished, okay? And then that means that I don't have to sit here watching it. I could, like I said, go maybe take a lunch break or something, but I would want to make sure that at least 3 frames rendered successfully. And if that's the case, and I kind of view those, so I might have to kind of wait 3 minutes to finish watching those finish. And if those look pretty good, I can assume it's going to do the rest of them, okay? There's been so many times where I had to stop the render and, you know, I kind of forgot to do something. Something was off. And then, you know, if I didn't notice that right away, then I would have just wasted 100 minutes, okay, waiting for it to be done. But now, you know, me just kind of explaining that looks like it's already done. It's literally already done right now. So not too bad. I can see that from 33, 34, 35. So 3 minutes was right on. We're good. So what now? Okay, I've got all of these images and I want to make a video file. So what I can do is open up a program called AfterEffects, and kind of the reverse of what we did with the video that I used for the reference. So when I did the reference video, I took a video and I made it into an image sequence. Now I'm kind of doing the opposite. I'm taking an image sequence and turning it into a video. So I'm going to double click in this area, and I'm going to go to my images. Here they are. And I only have to click on the first one as long as importer sequence is checked. And now I'm going to drag that into here, and it's going to make it the correct size and length. Okay, good. And now I can go to composition, add to render queue. And then I can say output module. Here, before we chose JPEG sequence, but we already have a JPEG sequence. So this time I'm going to make an AVI file. Okay, you can see that there's some other things that you could make as well, but I'm just going to do AVI. And we don't really have audio, so I could say output audio off. And that looks good. And then right here, I'm just going to go ahead and name this. So I'll save this in clips, and I'm going to call this, I'll call this turntable. AVI, that's fine. I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to hit render. It's going to take a little bit of time. When it's done, it's going to ding, and then I can come back here. And then under clips, here's my turntable. If I click on this, it's going to say, hey, what do you want to watch it with? I'll just say Windows Media Player. Aha, there we go. And if it looks kind of janky a little bit, I feel like what I would do is just, let me try this one here. Okay, yeah, that looks better. But I could always render it kind of a higher quality, right? I could always go here and make it much, much larger. I can make it full HD. Obviously, it's just going to take longer to render then. And, you know, I could have it as large as I wanted to. But now what's neat about this is that I could go here, and this is a, if I look at the properties, it's an AVI file. It's a very small file. Well, it's actually bigger than I thought. It's almost 90 megabits, okay, for that short clip. But I could email that to a friend. I could email that to myself. I could do whatever I wanted with it. So that is just kind of a quick look at how to render out a video. So think about when you had your character talking. Obviously, if that was the case, you wouldn't have to spin him around. You could just leave the camera in place and animate him talking, right? I just wanted to kind of show this extra idea of creating a three-dimensional or a 360-degree turntable, because that's kind of a popular thing that people also like to animate. So I hope you really enjoyed this lesson. I had a lot of fun with it, and go out there and animate.